Hey fellow campers and van lifers, this is Casey here at VanTripping.com. Thanks for watching another one of my videos. I'm going to continue today with the series following up from my last video, talking about really the different van sizes and types and benefits of each. Having owned both a Sprinter 144 inch and now a Sprinter 170 inch wheelbase, as well as the previous van being a short height with a pop top and this van being a tall height, hard walls, I can certainly speak about the difference between those. And in my subsequent video, I'm also going to talk about the difference between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, with both these vans also being one of each. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of those. So with that, let's dive in. So this taken right off Mercedes' website for the 144-inch wheelbase or shorter length. It is actually only 4.5 inches longer than a Toyota Tundra. Imagine that, only 4.5 inches longer. So while they seem imposing or big because they're taller, it's actually no longer than a typical pickup truck. And yet the Toyota Tundra has a bed length of only about 66 inches or 5.5 feet, while the 144-inch wheelbase Sprinter has an actual space from the back of the rear seats to the rear doors of 11 feet, 132 inches. So remarkably more space, and yet it can also carry 2,000 more pounds of payload than the Toyota Tundra. So is a 144-inch wheelbase really all that big, and yet with all this available capacity and space compared to a typical pickup truck? And yet the long wheelbase Sprinter, the 170-inch version, adds 3.5 more feet of interior cargo space. That is significant. And of course, that means it's a little bit longer. And that does mean it's also less maneuverable, a little more challenging, even though I have certainly put my Sprinter van through a lot of paces on rough technical terrain. And although I put my 170-inch longer Sprinter through a lot of technical terrain, and it has performed remarkably well in that technical terrain, and this is in part because of its four-wheel drive system and its small lift that it has, giving it really excellent approach and departure angles. The standard Sprinter actually has better approach angles than the Toyota Tundra, far better departure angles than the Toyota Tundra in both the long and the short wheelbase versions. So both can actually be quite capable off-road and around town, but nonetheless, the 144-inch wheelbase Sprinter is far more maneuverable in town, in parking, tight parking spaces. So it's just a lot more maneuverable and easier to drive. It obviously weighs a little bit less and costs a little bit less, and it also has less interior space to heat and cool. So those are some real advantages of the shorter wheelbase Sprinter. Meanwhile, the real challenge with the shorter wheelbase Sprinter, or also similar Ford Transit or Dodge ProMaster vans, is that you really lack space. And so you have to do a lot of creative things in order to fit more people, gear, put a full bed in there that's set up all the time. Typically have to do more folding beds, folding seats, and not have quite as much cargo space. Things like bikes, when they go in, generally the front wheels have to come off, which isn't such a big deal, but most people just go ahead and put their bikes on a rack outside. So if putting your gear inside or having a bed that's always made up is really important to you, then a longer wheelbase van is probably going to be more beneficial to you. For example, in my 170-inch Sprinter, I have a full queen bed that's always made up and room for 4 to 6 bikes in there with the front wheels on. I can also put full-length skis in there and still have a full kitchen and room up front for passengers. Interesting to note as well is that when my van has 4 bikes inside and a queen bed set up, it's actually shorter than a 144-inch wheelbase Sprinter with bikes on a rack out on the back. And so that's one benefit. You also gain the benefit, you can have a larger or longer roof rack where you can put larger solar panels or more solar panels up there. So I actually have about 50% more solar power and still enough room to sleep up there for 2 people to sleep on my roof rack. That was certainly not possible with the 144-inch wheelbase. You can certainly have a longer awning to get more shade. You can also have a lot more room underneath on a 170-inch wheelbase or longer Ford or Dodge van as well, to put tanks, water tanks, fuel tanks for auxiliary fuel, air tanks for air compressed systems and things like that. So while the longer wheelbase vans certainly provide more room both inside and underneath for various different things, they certainly have challenges or add to maneuverability and parking. I still do park mine in normal parking spaces, but it definitely adds a little more challenge, or quite a bit more challenge, than a 144. There certainly is more space to heat and cool, more space to insulate. You do also at the same time have more room for panels, for windows and things like that. But nonetheless, those are some of the challenges with a longer wheelbase Sprinter. So which do I prefer, a short or a long wheelbase van? I actually prefer the short wheelbase van for its benefits and maneuverability and so forth. However, the longer wheelbase van definitely affords a lot more space, and so that is a real benefit. Now, unlike in my previous video where I had a very strong opinion between a hard top versus soft top, or the short height versus a taller height van, as far as the wheelbase length or length of the van, I really think that's a personal opinion depending on how you're going to use it, intend to use it, and what you need to put inside of it. So with that, thank you for watching this video. My subsequent video that I'm going to have, I'll talk more about the difference between two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vans. And I look forward to any comments or questions you have, and certainly appreciate you enjoying the video and watching some more.